They work. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yamuna Chiravanachari. Yamuna Chiravanachari. Yamuna Chiravanachari. Jaya Kunja Bihari. Vanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Paribrajakacharya Astotra Shata Shri Srimad A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Sarasatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudhirayet Nasta Praeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki Om Jnanatamarandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangulam Gayate Girim Yat Kripatamaham Vande Shri Gurun Dinatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Ram Pada Swami Adinam Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Ati Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Pasyata Desha Tarine. Good morning. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th Canto, 70th chapter, verses 4 and 5. We'll chant verse 4 together, and then I'll chant the 5th, and then we'll do the word for verse 4, and continue from there. Brahme Muhurta Utaya Varya Upaspraya Madhavaha Dadhyau Prasana Karana Atmanam Tamasa Parama Brahme Muhurta Utaya Vari Upasprishya Madhavaha Dadhyau Prasana Karana Atmanam Tamasa Param Brahme Muhurta Utaya Vari Upasprishya Madhavaha Dadhyo Prasana Karana Atmanam Tamasa Param. Please chant. Brahme Muhurta Utaya Upashpashya Madhava Dadhyo Prasana Karana Atmanam Tamasa Param. Brahme Muhurta Utaya Upashpashya Madhava Dadhyo Prasana Karana. Now I'll chant verse 5. Ekam swayam jatir anayamaya avyayam swasam staya nityan rishta kalam sha brahmakyam ashyora bhava nashahitubi swashaktibihir lakshita bhava nivritim brahme muhurte. During the most suitable period of the day for spiritual activity before sunrise. Udhaya, rising. Body, water. Upasprishya, touching. Madhavaha, Lord Krishna. Dadhyo, meditated. Prasana, clear. Karanaha, his mind. Atmanam, upon himself. Tasmaha, ignorance. Param, beyond. Translation and purport by the disciples of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Lord Madhava would rise during the Brahma Muhurta period and touch water. With a clear mind, he would then meditate upon himself, the single, self-luminous, unequaled and infallible supreme truth known as Brahman, who by his very nature ever dispels all contamination, and who through his personal energies, which cause the creation and destruction of the universe, manifest his own pure and blissful existence. Purport. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur points out that the word bhava in this verse indicates the created beings. Thus, the compound word Lakshita Bhava Nivritim means that Lord Krishna gives pleasure to the created beings through his various energies. Of course, the soul is never created, but our material, conditioned existence is created by the interaction of the Lord's energies. One who is favored by the Lord's internal potency can understand the nature of the absolute truth. This understanding is called Krishna consciousness. In Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna explains that his energies are divided into inferior and superior, or material and spiritual potencies. The Brahma Samhita further explains that the material potency acts like a shadow, following the movements of the spiritual reality, which is the Lord himself and his spiritual potency. When one is favored by Lord Krishna, he reveals himself to the surrendered soul, and thus the same creation that formerly covered the soul becomes an impetus for spiritual enlightenment. I would also like to add, because it's pertinent to what I have to say, the commentary Srila Jiva Goswami. Srila Jiva Goswami says, he meditated in order to instruct ordinary society, and the other pastimes, which are subsequently related, are all for this purpose. So, we're hearing about Krishna's morning program, which is interesting. We as devotees have a morning program, and Krishna, the Supreme Lord himself, has a morning program. So he rises early in the morning at a time which is more auspicious, and early in the morning is naturally more sattvic. It's in the mode of goodness to be early in the morning. Each part of the day aligns with a different mode of material nature. So in more traditional times, when people were more advanced spiritually than we are now, people would rise during the Brahma Muhurta or before the Brahma Muhurta and take advantage of that mode of goodness and auspicious time. It's the most optimal time to meditate, and we can observe what happens when we rise early versus when we rise later in the day. If we rise later, it becomes more difficult to chant. That's because when the sun comes up, so does the mode of passion. The sun kind of welcomes that into the day. And after lunchtime, then it starts to descend into the mode of ignorance, and night itself is the mode of ignorance. There's actually, I think it's 10th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna calls Arjuna Gudakesha, which means one who has conquered sleep, or one who has conquered the mode of ignorance. So that's a fun Sanskrit grammar aside to the comments on this verse. But anyway, the point of the morning program is to purify ourselves, purify our thinking, and focus the mind on Krishna. And practically speaking, everybody has a morning program, even if they don't wake up in the morning. It's just, what mode does it fall into? Some people have a morning program that's in the mode of goodness. Devotees have a morning program that's in the mode of goodness. Other people might have a morning program that's in the mode of passion or the mode of ignorance. And the whole day is affected by how we start our morning. And by regularly attending the morning program, we develop a samskara, we develop an impression that helps us develop attachment to Guru and Krishna. Every morning, there's two significant things that we chant in the morning. So many times we say, Vande Guru Sri Charanarvindam. I offer my respectful obeisances unto my Guru. And we chant Hare Krishna together. And so by doing that over and over again, we develop that habit that in first thing in the morning, we're thinking about Guru and we're thinking about Krishna. When non-devotees wake up in the morning, they have varying morning routines, but a lot of it revolves around getting up, getting some coffee, which is like mainlining mode of passion, and then flip on the news. And the news is just a god-awful thing. Think about it. What kinds of things are on the news? Well, blood and violence and gore sells. And so that's the main thing that they put up is negativity. Because that's what people are attracted to when they're in the modes of passion and ignorance is negativity. So they're thinking about, these people that died in a horrible car accident and how bad traffic is, because everyone's going to have to go to work, and traffic's always bad because everybody's always thinking about themselves first and rushing around and driving nonsensically, and if they're lucky, they're waking up and having animal consciousness. But it's common to see that a lot of people aren't even on the level of animal consciousness. There's, really common saying, don't talk to me till I've had my coffee. Because people are just so in the mode of ignorance, they can't even function like a human being. They just kind of stumble around in a human's body with a tree's consciousness. Coffee. And this is not optimal for spiritual life, behaving in this way. And that's the point of this human birth, isn't it? Is spiritual advancement. Atato Brahma Jigyasa. So as devotees, if we want to make nice advancement, then we have to develop faith in Guru and Prabhupada. And by developing that faith, then naturally the teachings reveal themselves to us in a much more rapid way. Those of us with spiritual masters know that as we deepen the relationship between guru and disciple, even a look can have a major effect, or even a couple words can change the course of the disciple's entire life. You know, so what to speak of, if that's the power of a look or a couple of words, what to speak of following the instructions of Guru and hearing what Guru is teaching us. It's going to have a very drastic impact on our lives, materially and spiritually. So we're trying to become, by becoming attached to Guru, we're trying to become attached to Krishna. Because Guru is the one, Prabhupada said, Guru is the one that takes your hand and puts it in Krishna's hand. Guru makes the introduction. So we wake up early by 4 a.m., shower, clean ourselves, put tilak on, put clean clothing on, we assemble together in the temple room, and work together to form those samskaras and to build a strong mode of goodness foundation for our day, for our week, for our spiritual life, by ingraining these good habits every day. It's like before a soldier goes into battle, they don't just like hang out and watch TV and then stand up. All right, guess it's time to go shoot at some people. No, they get ready. They put their armor on, they check their weapons, discuss their battle plans. So the morning program is like that for devotees. We have to go out and battle the modes of material nature. So we better have a good battle plan together. We better make sure that our armor is checked, and make sure that we're ready to face all that the material nature has to throw at us. And by doing that every morning, it's a quite austere thing to wake up at 4, especially when you don't get to bed at a good hour, or you don't have very good quality sleep, or you're just not used to it. It's an austere thing to do, but austerity is the wealth of the Brahmins. And Prabhupada came. He said he's coming to make a class of Brahminical people, because that's what the world is missing. So we should all be trying to develop these Brahminical qualities like austerity, cleanliness, God consciousness. And by doing these things, that which is poison in the beginning, or tastes like poison in the beginning, is actually medicine in the end. There's the jaundice analogy with sugar. You take sugar when you're jaundiced, it's very bitter. But sugar is the cure for jaundice. So eventually, after taking so much bitter, disgusting sugar, it becomes sweet again. And the jaundice is cured. So the morning program is that initial bitterness, trying to cure ourselves from the jaundice of being in Maya. And if we don't develop a taste for it, if we don't develop a taste for devotional service, then we'll start looking elsewhere for our pleasure. Maya will creep in and try to entertain us again. And we know from not just revelation of the acharyas and hearing from other devotees, but from practical experience. I'm sure all of us know that we don't particularly want to be engaged with Maya anymore because of its nature. It's temporary and unsatisfying. So we're trying to find something beyond that. And we're going to have to go through a little bit of discomfort for that, because that's just how things work. That's the nature of the world. And a good morning program is very, very foundational to establishing that. And actually, when we wake up, we're still in kind of a semi-dream state. Those things that were acting upon our mind when we were asleep still have a little bit of an effect on us. And so the process of cleaning ourselves, putting on clean clothes, and assembling to focus on Krishna also helps us to rid ourselves of the aftermath of the dream state. And if we don't have that process of purifying our consciousness, then we're going to be affected by, whatever is going on in our dreams. And anything can go on in dreams. We'll see, practically speaking, we'll be affected by lust or anger or sadness or whatever we're dealing with in dreams. And the integral part, the part that we dedicate the most time to in the morning program, is chanting Hare Krishna. And that chanting, being the Yoga Dharma, being the medicine prescribed for this age, is what slowly, by a process, it slowly brings us back to our Krishna conscious state. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati calls it an effacing process, where it's just slowly removing layer by layer. Each mantra is helping to remove a layer of covering that's inducing us to forget Krishna. And as those layers become removed, then we start to more naturally remember Krishna, which is our original state. It's remembrance of Krishna, and our state here is forgetfulness of Krishna. And it's particularly, so the morning program is particularly beneficial for people like myself, newer devotees, people newer to Krishna conscious life, who are still trying to form mode of goodness habits. And mode of goodness is kind of a baseline for devotees. It's not even necessarily a goal, and it's definitely not the end all be all, because goodness is still a material mode of nature. But first we have to come to the mode of goodness before we can transcend the mode of goodness. And it's kind of like our springboard to get off the ground, get out of passion and ignorance, get into the mode of goodness. In the mode of goodness, we can start laying a spiritual foundation and enter into a more transcendental mode. So newer devotees, people that are still trying to establish their sadhana, I've noticed for myself, at the very least, I particularly benefit from the morning program every day, whether I like it or not. It's an austerity. There's no denying that the morning program is an austerity, but it's such an important austerity. For those we love, we sacrifice. So if we're trying to love Krishna, then we should do a little bit of sacrifice. Krishna is so merciful that he makes it actually kind of pleasant when we get over ourselves, At least I've found that when I get over myself and stop trying to enjoy for myself, and I do these austerities prescribed by the acharyas, and it becomes a pleasant thing. When I'm thinking about satisfying my tongue and belly, then Ekadasi is a rather unpleasant thing, because I like eating bread and pizza and all the things that you're not supposed to eat on Ekadasi. But when I stop thinking about myself and start thinking about Krishna, it becomes a lot easier to put those things aside and say, okay, well, I can spend a little bit less time thinking about myself and and satisfying my desires to eat very nicely and spend a little bit more time uh, focusing on Krishna. And it's such an important thing in early devotional life. The traditional varnashram system, actually only one ashram is working, collecting money, and doing business. The first 20, 25 years or so of life, they're spent studying and, learning how to be a human, like an actual human, not a Kali Yuga human. And we see even in the 10th canto that Krishna goes to Gurukul and he learns 64 arts in 64 days. That's Krishna's potency. It takes us a little bit longer to learn things like that. But we can see the benefit of getting a spiritual education early in life. If you look at a child who went to Gurukul, it's abundantly obvious to see, okay, this person has been in spiritual life, not just since the beginning of this lifetime, so that it's ingrained in who they are, but for lifetimes they've been doing this thing. These Prabhupada said that the children of Krishna consciousness are incredibly special. So the demigods are lining up to take birth in the Krishna consciousness movement. And we can see by their example what it's like learning from a young age how to be Krishna conscious. So after the first 25-ish years, then people would generally enter into the Grihastha ashram, and that's when they raise children and make money and support the other three ashrams. And having a foundation of how to act as a spiritual individual, it becomes a little bit easier to then go into this material nature and manipulate it so that you can, have children and support yourself and so on and so forth. And we have now we have really two forms of vanaprastha ashram that we're trying to figure out in the Hare Krishna movement. There's the idea that it's either a pre-sannyas for some people, where the man separates himself from his wife, puts on orange, and kind of starts acting like a sannyasi. And the other school of thought is that husband and wife together give up working and they try to spend as much time as possible together, focusing on spiritual life, going to holy dhams together. Some couples reside in the dham in their retired life and do their Krishna consciousness together, or engage in full-time temple service. The Houston community is very beautiful because they have a lot of devotees that live in very close proximity to the temple, and it's reached a state of maturity now. The community's reached a state of maturity where a lot of people are starting to retire, and they live, within a 5-minute walk of the temple, and a lot of them live way less than a 5-minute walk, from the temple. So naturally, they're able to go to the morning program every day. They're able to engage in service at the temple every single day. They're able to go to Bhagavatam class and the evening arti and every program because they're in that close proximity and they're retired. So what better things do you have to do than go to the temple and focus on spiritual life? It's a really, really wonderful example, I think, for communities that are capable of doing so across the country and across the world, that we congregate around the temple as much as possible, build a spiritual community, and do spiritual things together. It seems to be, at least to me, I'm not a Vanaprastha, and I haven't particularly entered into household life to know what it should look like coming out the other end of it, but it seems like a pretty good thing, to use your the latter portion of your life after raising children and so on to focus on spiritual life, just like using the beginning of the life to focus on spiritual life is a very good way to spend your time. And then finally, just to round out the talk on Varnashram, we have the sannyasa ashram, where the husband separates himself from the wife and becomes renounced, leaves home. It says in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that it's not that sannyasis should stay very close to their friends and family and be very comfortable living off of them, but a sannyasi's duty is to teach and to share their realization. At the end of life, one has had so much realization of one form or another. If you make it to the latter half or latter third of your life and you don't have realization, you don't have knowledge, you don't have understanding about something, then you are either ignorant that you do or you have a serious problem. So people that engage in spiritual life for some time have some realization, and it behooves them to share it with other people. This is what we do. This is the Sankirtan movement, is to share what we have, to share the chanting, and share love of God with everybody. This is what Mahaprabhu tells us all to do, is to share it. And that's the duty of the sannyasi, is to really take that, not even a step, but almost a leap, and renounce the world and try to bring other people to Krishna consciousness and help those that are trying to become Krishna conscious to become more Krishna conscious. And in our society now, we have, it's Kali Yuga, so things aren't exactly ideal, but we do have some nice things going on regardless. We have now brahmacharis that stay brahmacharis for life and then enter the sannyasa ashram. And that was pretty much started by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. He kind of reformed what sannyas is in our Gaudiya line. He changed the dress for brahmacharis and sannyasis, because actually the saffron dress, particularly the saffron dress of how our sannyasis dress now, is actually from the Ramakrishna mission. It's an impersonalist sannyasi style of dress, and that's why Bhaktisiddhanta, Srila Prabhupada, they wouldn't wear a very dark orange or reddish orange color. They would actually wear closer to a pinkish orange, because a darker, like a stronger orange is a color of Mayavad sannyasis. So the style of dress was adopted because Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur knew that, okay, when people see this dress, automatically respect is given. So let's adopt the dress and then make some distinction that we're not Mayavadis, so we'll change the color. We'll adopt a more suitable color for our mood, and then people will naturally give a little bit of respect that they might not otherwise. So we've had some renovations done to the renounced orders of life, brahmacharya and sannyas. And it's quite interesting to observe these things, how things have changed according to Kali Yuga, that people are choosing to remain renounced for their whole life. It's not a traditional thing, aside from very elevated personalities. And even now we have so many elevated personalities making that decision. We're so fortunate to get their association. So the building of a strong foundation can be very integral, because most people don't remain renounced their entire life. So having a strong spiritual foundation is very beneficial for people when they enter into the Grihastha ashram, because it's difficult interacting with people who aren't participating in spiritual life, and money and the material nature, and raising children is not an easy task. I call it the childbearing yagya, because it's a lot of sacrifice to raise children, as far as I can tell. I haven't had too many parents admit to me that it's easy. They say it's worth it. They say it's enjoyable. They say they wouldn't trade it for anything, but they've never said, "Oh yeah, it's easy having children," especially small children. They're so finicky in their care. So it's quite the austerity to do. But when we can realize, okay, I'm doing this for Krishna, and everything I do is for Krishna, then naturally doing anything becomes easier. And when we center our lives, everything, our energy, everything that we're doing on Krishna, that's the difference between somebody who is a grihasta, or a householder, and somebody who's a grihamedi, or a sense gratifier. That goes even beyond grihastas. Anybody, if you're not working for the enjoyment of Krishna, you're just a sense gratifier. If you are working for Krishna, then you're a devotee. And having a spiritual foundation allows persons in the Grihastha ashram to very easily transcend the passion that's required to operate in material life, and operate on the platform of mode of goodness. It's not necessarily required to become a brahmachari, become a brahmacharini, to be spiritual in any ashram, but it is absolutely 108% required to have good sadhana. Without good sadhana, the whole program of spiritual life suffers. So as devotees, we try to displace ourselves from the material nature as much as possible. And we do that by taking shelter. We take shelter of the temple, we take shelter of Guru, we take shelter of Prabhupada, we take shelter of Gaura-Nitai and Krishna. And our sadhana is what enables us to take that shelter. So if we don't do that, then we're just participating in the material rat race, and by doing so, we don't particularly have time to ask those deeper questions. Who am I? Why am I here? Why am I suffering? What am I meant to do with this life? These are the biggest questions that we can ask, and these are the questions we're supposed to ask with the human intelligence, because this is the only form of life that we can ask these questions. So to not ask, to not try to find out what is the science of the self, is just a waste of a human life. And it's required to live a full human level life. It's required to ask these questions. So a great place to start in that is in attending the morning program and giving ourselves space to open up and ask the important questions, and even more important, get the important answers, and find these things out. Sanatana Goswami tells Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, people say I'm a great scholar. Actually, I'm a great fool. I don't even know why the threefold miseries keep disturbing me. I don't know who I am. This highlights the extreme humility of Srila Sanatana Goswami. But it also gives us an impetus for reflection. the threefold miseries are affecting all of us, whether we like it or not. Adidavik, the troubles created by the demigods, Adibodic, those created by other living beings, and Adhyatmic, the troubles that we create ourselves. And that's why, we chant every day, Om Ajnanatamrandasya Ananjana Shalakaya Chakshut Unmilitamena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. That I was born into ignorance, and it's only by the mercy of Guru, applying the torchlight of knowledge, that my closed, my darkened eyes, my ignorant eyes, begin to open and see things how they really are. But we have to ask the question first. What's going on? Who am I and why am I here? We come into this world like an animal. And we've certainly, at least myself, have passed through so many animal births that it's a little bit more identifiable to act in that animalistic way, trying to take care of myself and gratify my own senses. We're completely covered by the material modes of nature, and that's why Mahaprabhu sings Jeev Jago, Jeev Jago. He says, wake up, sleeping souls, wake up. How long will you stay sleeping on the lap of the witch called Maya? And there's so many people that are walking around, fully participating in material life, but actually they're completely asleep. Their soul is completely asleep. Their consciousness is completely asleep and inactive. The mind and senses are just dragging the body around here, there, and everywhere, trying to get some satisfaction. And the soul is suffering like anything because of that, because there is no happiness in this material world. The chariot analogy lends itself very well to this point, that the soul is the passenger in the body, and the mind is the driver, and the senses act as horses. So if we're awake, we can tell the driver, I want to go here. I want to go to Krishna. Then we can use the mind as it's supposed to be used, as a driver, and keep the senses under control. But uncontrolled horses, I used to have horses. Uncontrolled horses are a terrifying thing. Just on a mundane level, they're very large animals, and they're incredibly powerful. 1 horsepower doesn't seem like a lot, but a horse is very powerful. So a horse not under control, it's not a good scenario for anybody trying to interact with it. 1 kick and everything is finished. So we have to control the senses. We have to control those horses. Keep them under wraps. Otherwise, everything is finished. This human life is meant for that. Atato Brahma Jigyasa. We're meant for self-realization in this life. And if we don't, then we're just wasting it. And the morning program facilitates that. And particularly a morning program in the temple is very beneficial for those who can participate. This is the same Kirtan movement. We don't do things alone. It's not that we're meant to chant Hare Krishna alone. We're meant to chant Hare Krishna congregationally, together. Because the mind wants to do so many other things. But when we get in the association of people who are also trying to practice Krishna consciousness, and we all make the decision together, let's try to practice Krishna consciousness together, then we can use the strength of others to strengthen ourselves. Iron sharpens iron. So as devotees, we have to work together to try to make spiritual advancement. Our Kaustubha Prabhu in New York has this really nice example for people. Because a lot of new people come and they ask, what is yoga, or what does yoga mean? Is this yoga? Is that yoga? because it's not really clear what yoga is beyond stretches to a lot of people. So Kaustubha Prabhu says yoga is a process that helps one overcome the obstacle of the mind to experience a higher nature. And by doing that, a separation is made between the mind and the self. And by separating the mind from the senses, and by separating the soul from the mind, then we become in control of those things. And when we become in control of them, then we transcend. Srila Prabhupada said, Ahankara means my identification, what I am. This is called Ahankara. Now my identity is with this material world. I'm Indian, I'm American, I am this, I am that. That should be negated. We must come to the right conclusion that I belong to Krishna. I am the son of Krishna. I do not belong to anyone. This is called Nirankara. This material happiness and distress, because I am not this body, if I am actually convinced, so the pains and pleasures of this material world is due to this body. We should not be disturbed by these material pains and pleasures. We have to execute our spiritual consciousness business. So we have to transcend even the mode of goodness, because it's a mode. But first we have to come to the mode of goodness. We have to transcend this body and its bodily identifications. But first we have to learn how to be in the body and take control of it. So we're given sadhana, how to do that. Even Krishna has his own sadhana. He gets up, touches water for purification, takes a shower, in other words, and then with a clear mind, he begins to meditate upon himself, because all things reside within Krishna. So what else does Krishna have to meditate on but himself? So some spiritual paths actually teach us to meditate on ourselves. But we can see pretty simply that there's nothing higher than meditating on the Supreme. And we can also see that we are not in fact the Supreme, that actually Krishna is the Supreme. When Mahaprabhu took sannyas and received the sannyas mantra, which translates roughly to I am that, he said, I am that? No, I'm not that. And he became, kind of displeased with this, like very displeased with this. And one of his devotees told him to revert it and say, I am his. And by that acknowledgement, then Mahaprabhu became very happy. And so devotees, we don't think ourselves as independent from Krishna, because we don't exist independently from Krishna. We only exist forgetful of Krishna. But the devotee always identifies himself as belonging to Krishna, servant of Krishna, dasa dasanudas, even. And we understand that we're dependent on Krishna, and everything that we have belongs to Krishna. Everything that we don't have belongs to Krishna. Mahaprabhu teaches us in the Shikshastakam, Jagadisha Kamaye, Mama Janmani Janmanishwari, Bhavatad Bhaktir Ahoitaki Tvai, that my dear Lord, Jagadisha, my dear Lord of the entire universe, all I want, Janmani Janmani, life after life, birth after birth, Bhaktir Ahoitaki. I want bhakti, unending bhakti. I only want your causeless devotional service. So we can see from the verse, Krishna's meditating upon himself, because everything is within himself. So as devotees, we should meditate on Krishna, Radha and Krishna, which is what the Maha Mantra is. Prabhupada gives the explanation of the Maha Mantra as, O Krishna, O energy of Krishna, or Srimati Radharani, please engage me in your service. And this is how we return to our natural state. We follow the prescription, chanting Hare Krishna. And by doing so, we become awakened. We wake up from our sleeping state. Our eyes open, and we become engaged in what is nitya, what is our eternal position, which is always in service to the divine couple. This is the Krishna consciousness movement. So with that, I have to pat myself on the back because that was 8 or 10 pages worth of notes. Usually I struggle to get through 7. I use a big font though, so it's, substantial information I'm trying to pack into the hour-ish that we have together. So with that, it has just struck 8:30. I will take any questions, comments, complaints, concerns, criticisms, chastisements that anyone may have to offer me.
You make a very interesting point that one has to kind of learn to live in one's body, and from the point of view that I guess it's part of taking to the path of self-realization, and there is the problem that actually it is very easy for the mind to get very disturbed when the body is amiss.
Tell me about it.
So there has to be some way that one practically attends to the difficulties of the body affecting the mind, because it is a reality.
Yeah, it is. As I'm talking about these things, my legs are falling asleep, which can be quite excruciating, and it became quite excruciating. So I'm trying to manipulate them in such a way that they can wake up and stop being excruciating, all the while trying to be, steated deer and deliver this grave talk on these subjects of transcending the body and so on and so forth. Meanwhile, I'm just inside going, this is so uncomfortable. It really is quite the task to overcome the body. But here we are. Anything else? Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada and his disciples ki jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda ki jai.